Imagine waking up one morning, and the river outside your home, the same river where your kids play, where you wash your face, where your ancestors prayed, has turned black. Not dark blue, not murky brown, pure black. And the smell? Like a chemical factory exploded overnight. This is not a movie scene. This is happening right now, to millions of people around the world. Today, we're uncovering the 5 most polluted rivers on Earth. And trust me, one of them will break your heart. Stay till the end. Because number 1 is so bad, scientists called it a disaster beyond imagination. Let's go. Before we begin, understand something important. These are not just polluted rivers. These are rivers that once gave life to entire civilizations, rivers that fed millions, rivers that shaped history, and today, many of them are struggling to survive. So here's a question for you. If the river nearest your home suddenly became toxic, would you stay, or would you leave everything behind? Keep that question in mind as we begin our journey. Our journey begins in the heart of West Africa, the Niger River. Flowing through multiple countries and supporting millions of people, the Niger River is one of Africa's most important waterways. For generations, it has provided food, water, transportation, and a way of life. Entire communities were built around it. Entire families depended on it. At first glance, the river appears calm, peaceful, but beneath its surface lies a disaster, decades in the making. The story begins in the Niger Delta, one of the most oil-rich regions on Earth. For decades, oil companies drilled deep beneath this region, bringing enormous wealth, but also enormous consequences: pipeline leaks, equipment failures, and illegal tapping operations. Year after year, oil entered rivers, wetlands, and farmland, slowly poisoning the environment. Imagine standing beside a river and seeing rainbow-colored oil floating across the water. Imagine casting a fishing net and catching fewer fish every year. Imagine being a farmer and watching your land become less productive with every season. For many communities in the Niger Delta, this is not imagination, it is reality. Fish populations have declined in heavily affected areas. Farmland has been damaged, and contaminated water continues to impact countless families. Perhaps the saddest part is this: most people around the world have never even heard of it. One of Africa's most important rivers, quietly carrying the scars of decades of pollution. And yet, millions still depend on it every day, because they have no alternative, no backup source, no second river, just this one. A river fighting to survive. Did you know about the Niger Delta oil crisis before today? And if your local river looked like this, would you still use it? Let me know in the comments. But while oil pollution has devastated parts of the Niger Delta, our next river faces a different threat, a threat that arrives every single day, not through pipelines, but through factories, chemicals, industrial waste, and pollution so visible that you can see it with your own eyes. Our next river takes us to Bangladesh, the Buriganga River. Wrapping around Dhaka, one of the most densely populated cities on Earth, the Buriganga was once the lifeline of the region. For centuries, this river supported trade, transportation, and daily life. Without it, Dhaka might never have become the city it is today. But today, the Buriganga tells a very different story. Close your eyes and imagine a river so dark that it looks like black ink. A river where the water barely appears natural. Unfortunately, that's not an exaggeration. For years, industrial waste has flowed into this river, particularly from leather processing factories known as tanneries. Leather production requires large amounts of chemicals, dyes, acids, heavy metals, and much of that waste eventually finds its way into the water. The result? A river struggling to survive. Aquatic life has suffered, water quality has deteriorated, and communities living nearby report serious health concerns, headaches, skin diseases, breathing problems. For many residents, the river became something to fear, yet thousands of people still depend on it every day. Why? Because they have no choice. Imagine waking up every morning, knowing the river beside your home may be damaging your health, and still needing it to survive. That is the reality for many families living near the Buriganga. The river serves as a powerful reminder that pollution is not just an environmental problem. It is a human problem, a community problem, a public health problem. And perhaps the most tragic part is that the people suffering most are often those with the fewest options. Which river has shocked you more so far? The Niger River or the Buriganga River? Comment your answer below. But as disturbing as the Buriganga is, the next river carries a tragedy thousands of years in the making. A river that helped build one of the world's oldest civilizations. A river once celebrated by emperors, praised by poets, and known as the Mother River of China. Our third river takes us to China. The Yellow River. For thousands of years, this river has been known as the Mother River of China. It helped give birth to one of the world's oldest civilizations. Ancient cities rose along its banks. Farmers depended on its waters, and emperors viewed it as one of the foundations of their empire. Imagine standing beside this river 5,000 years ago, watching boats move across the water, watching farms stretch across the horizon, watching an entire civilization grow around it. For ancient China, this wasn't just a river. It was life itself. But today, parts of this historic river face a very different reality. Rapid industrial growth transformed much of China. Factories appeared, cities expanded, and economic development accelerated at an extraordinary pace. But progress often came with a cost: industrial waste, chemical runoff, and massive amounts of sewage entered waterways across the country, including sections of the Yellow River. At times, some stretches of the river have displayed unusual colors: red, orange, even white foam floating across the surface, visible reminders of pollution entering the ecosystem. Every year, enormous amounts of industrial wastewater and sewage continue to impact waterways across China. And while enormous efforts have been made to improve conditions, the effects of decades of pollution do not disappear overnight. Imagine inheriting a river that helped build your civilization, then watching it struggle under the weight of modern industry. The Yellow River tells a story that many nations face today: the difficult balance between economic growth and environmental protection. A balance that is often harder to achieve than it seems. Let me ask you something. If you had to choose only one, what is more important: rapid economic growth or protecting nature for future generations? Comment your answer below. But while the Yellow River represents the cost of industrial expansion, our next river carries something even more powerful: faith, history, and the hopes of more than 1 billion people. For millions, this next river is not simply water, it is sacred. Now our journey brings us to India, the Ganga. For over 1 billion Hindus, the Ganga is far more than a river. It is a goddess, a symbol of purity, a source of spiritual connection. For centuries, people have traveled thousands of miles to reach its waters, to pray, to celebrate, to seek blessings, and to connect with something greater than themselves. Imagine standing on the banks of the Ganga at sunrise, the sound of prayers echoing through the air, the glow of lamps floating across the water. Thousands of people gathered together. Few rivers on earth carry this level of cultural and spiritual significance. For many people, touching the waters of the Ganga is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. But beneath that beauty lies a difficult reality. As India's population expanded, so did the pressure placed on the river. Today, the Ganga receives sewage from more than 100 cities, industrial waste from thousands of factories, and enormous amounts of plastic pollution. Every single day, millions of liters of wastewater enter the river system. The result is a river struggling to support both human needs and environmental health. The Indian government launched one of the world's largest river cleaning programs, the Namami Ganga project. Billions of dollars have been invested. New treatment facilities have been built, and some sections of the river are showing improvement. There is progress, real progress, but the challenge remains enormous. Because cleaning a river that stretches for thousands of kilometers is not something that happens overnight. Imagine watching something sacred slowly deteriorate. Something deeply connected to your culture, your history, your identity, and knowing that saving it will take years of effort, perhaps decades. That is the challenge facing the Ganga today, a river loved by millions, and a river still fighting for its future. If you've ever visited the Ganga, what was your first impression? And if you haven't, would you like to see it one day? Let me know in the comments. But if you think these rivers are the worst humanity has created, what you're about to see is almost impossible to believe. A river so polluted that people once struggled to see the water beneath the trash. A river that shocked scientists, journalists, and environmental experts around the world. And for many years, it was considered the most polluted river on Earth. Our final river takes us to Indonesia, the Citarum River, and finally, our journey brings us to Indonesia, the Citarum River. If the previous rivers shocked you, prepare yourself, because what you're about to hear sounds almost impossible. The Citarum River flows through West Java. More than 30 million people depend on it for drinking water, agriculture, fishing, and daily life. At first glance, it looks less like a river and more like a landfill. For decades, thousands of factories operated along its banks. Many of them were involved in textile production, producing clothes shipped around the world. But alongside those products came something else: chemical dyes, industrial waste, heavy metals, and enormous amounts of pollution. Year after year, much of it entered the river. The result was catastrophic. At its worst, some sections of the Citarum became so covered with garbage that it was difficult to see the water underneath. Imagine standing on the riverbank, looking across the surface, and seeing mountains of floating trash stretching into the distance. Plastic bottles, food packaging, industrial waste, layer upon layer of pollution. Now imagine living there. Imagine being a child, growing up beside that river, swimming in it, bathing in it, depending on it. Researchers found alarming levels of contamination in parts of the river system, and for many families, avoiding the water simply wasn't possible. Because it was everywhere. Their lives depended on it. Perhaps the most heartbreaking sight of all was watching people collect garbage from the river, not to clean it, but to sell it, trying to earn enough money to survive. Think about that for a moment. A river once meant to provide life, reduced to a source of waste. And yet, there is hope. In recent years, Indonesia launched major cleanup efforts. The military became involved. Waste removal programs expanded, and some sections of the river have shown signs of improvement. The Citarum is still far from fully recovered. But for the first time in years, there are signs that change is possible. Still, the scars left behind will not disappear quickly. Environmental damage can be repaired, but rebuilding human health and communities often takes much longer. Which river shocked you the most? The Niger, the Buriganga, the Yellow River, the Ganga, or the Citarum? Comment your answer below. And now, take a moment to think about something. Every river on this list was different. A river poisoned by oil, a river overwhelmed by industrial chemicals, a river burdened by rapid development, a sacred river struggling under the weight of human activity, and a river once buried beneath mountains of trash. Yet all of them share one thing in common. None of them destroyed themselves. Humans did. Industry did. Decades of neglect did. And perhaps that's the hardest truth of all, because rivers are easy to take for granted. We see them every day. We cross them. We build cities beside them, and we assume they will always be there. But history tells a different story. When a river dies, communities suffer, ecosystems collapse, and future generations pay the price. Imagine a world where clean rivers become rare, where children grow up never knowing what healthy water looks like, where entire ecosystems exist only in photographs. That future is not impossible. In some places, it has already begun. But there is another side to this story, a side that gives reason for hope, because every river on this list also has people fighting to save it. Scientists, environmentalists, local communities, volunteers, and ordinary people who refuse to give up. Because a river is more than water. A river is history. A river is culture. A river is identity. A river is life. And as long as people continue fighting for them, there is still hope. So here's my final question for you. If you could save only one river from this list, which one would you choose, and why? I'd love to hear your answer in the comments. If this video taught you something new, share it with someone else, because awareness is where change begins. Subscribe for more stories that matter, and I'll see you in the next journey.